It's Halloween night, the kind of quiet that's only quiet because everyone's outside making noise. But that was at the height of the night. You've passed out hundreds of tiny Tootsie Rolls and a few special full-size candy bars mixed in with fake fangs and gummy bears. And now your porch light is off. The candy bowl is empty. You're cozy on the couch with a scary movie playing and the TV casting an orange light across the room. But then you hear it. 3 slow knocks. Not frantic, but patient, like whoever's there already knows you're standing inches away from the door, waiting to answer it. But you don't open it. You think it's too late. Who would be knocking at this hour? You look through the peephole. Someone in a dark-colored hoodie is standing on your porch. He doesn't wear a full costume because he doesn't need one. Halloween already makes him invisible. He would blend right in with trick-or-treaters. But he's not one of them. He has other plans. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. You may know me from my true crime channel here on YouTube called Kimbyrleigha. I am Kimbyrleigha or Kimbyr, and this is Candidly Kimbyr. On this channel, we'll be diving into some of the most interesting real life stories from around the web, mostly focusing on one of my favorite places, which is Reddit. And wow, do I have some fitting stories for you today. They're perfect for getting into the spirit of Halloween, or maybe not, depending on how you feel about what I'm about to tell you. You can see my set is properly decorated for the season as well. And I do want to stop and thank so many of you for subscribing to this channel. You don't know how scared I was to create this. I was looking for a companion channel to my true crime channel, somewhere where I could still tell stories and help you calm down. A lot of people use it to fall asleep, but also a place where we could be maybe a little lighthearted from time to time, maybe let out a laugh here and there, and somewhere where I could connect with you on a different level. So I'm pleasantly surprised by how many of you are really liking this channel. But let's get into our first story. It's from the Let's Not Meet subreddit. It's entitled, "Be Careful Who You Open Your Door To on Halloween." From the poster Daily Donut 16. Here we go. This incident happened to me last year on Halloween. My little brother and I were home alone since our parents had gone out to a Halloween party. They had tasked us with handing out candy to the trick-or-treaters. This bummed my brother and I out because we had made plans to go trick-or-treating with a few friends. Our parents told us that we were too old to still be trick-or-treating and that we could instead invite our friends over to the house and hang out there. My friends declined my invitation to come over because they still wanted to go trick-or-treating. So that left me home alone with my brother handing out candy. I just wanted to say, side note, I don't think you're too old because I would definitely be considered too old in that case. And I still go trick-or-treating, but I go with my kids. So there's that. But I still gather treats in my own bag. So it counts. I love candy. I think with a costume, I could still pass as a teenager only because I'm 4'11". But is there an age limit? Let me know in the comments. Is there an age limit? I guess there should be. I'll Google it. I think it's fine if teens go trick-or-treating. It's innocent fun, and they could be doing much worse. But let's go back to this story. A lot of people stopped by our house, and by 10 o'clock, almost all of our candy was gone. My brother and I decided we'd eat the rest, and we were sitting on the couch watching a scary movie, stuffing ourselves with candy, when there was a knock at the door. I stormed off the couch wondering who the hell could be knocking on our door this late. I assumed it was just some late night trick-or-treaters. Even if that was the case, I had turned the porch light off and Halloween decorations off, which should have been a dead giveaway that we were out of candy or that we weren't home. So I assumed it was my parents. Being cautious, I looked through the peephole and saw a suspicious man standing on our front porch. He was wearing a black hoodie with the hood over his head, which made it difficult to see his face. The only detail of his face I could spot was that he had a beard and dry, crusty lips. There was no way that this guy was a trick-or-treater because he wasn't wearing a costume and he was far too old to be trick-or-treating alone. His hands were stuffed in the front pockets of his hoodie and he also looked very thin. Every single red flag went off in my head about this guy. There was no way in hell I was going to open the door. Still looking through the peephole, I watched as he knocked on the door again. He seemed desperate for us to open the door and was shaking a bit. It wasn't cold outside, definitely not cold enough for someone to be trembling. He was giving me a bad vibe, and I wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. "We're out of candy," I shouted to him. Another little side note, I promise I won't keep cutting in, but I thought since it's the first time I've ever owned a house this year and we'll be handing out candy, what about a sign? Like once the candy is out, leave a sign in the yard right before they get to your door that says, "Sorry, it's all gone." Maybe they won't come to knock if that's the case, but I think this person would not have been deterred. The poster wrote, "I watched as a smile spread across his face. It wasn't friendly either."
"Are you alone in there?"
the man asked, almost in a mocking voice. His voice was raspy and dry. "Should I call the police?" my little brother asked me quietly, gripping the cell phone. The man let out a low grumble and said,
"Sounds like you're not alone in there."
I continued to watch him through the peephole. His hands were still wedged tightly in his pockets, and he was still shaking a bit. I began to wonder if he was armed. I decided to take action and spoke to him in the most intimidating voice I could. "Get the f*** away from my house or I'll call the police," I shouted. His smile faded, and he bared his teeth. His teeth were piss yellow, and I concluded that he was probably some homeless crackhead. He had a look of fury plastered on his face. Fortunately, he left without trying to break in, probably because he knew I wasn't fucking around with him. I didn't stop watching him through the peephole until I saw him completely off our property. My brother and I breathed a sigh of relief, and I decided not to call the police. My brother and I were a bit paranoid after this and watched TV until our parents came home. We didn't tell them about the man since he hadn't really tried to harm us. Now, when I think back to this, I wish we had called the police because maybe we would have been able to prevent a murder. You see, the very next day, we found out that the elderly woman who lived a few houses down from us had been brutally murdered. Her neighbor had found her lying on her front porch covered in blood. She had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and neck. My brother and I immediately knew who had done it, and we told the police what we knew. They couldn't do much from the information we had given them since we hadn't seen many details of his face. They went on the hunt for this man, but never caught him. I blame myself for that poor lady's murder because I could have prevented it from happening just by calling the police. I think the most disturbing thing of all is the fact that he didn't take anything from the old lady's house. Her house had been left untouched, but he could have gone in and taken what he wanted since her door was wide open. This means that he just wanted to kill. That was his only intention. He didn't want money or jewelry. He only had the urge to murder. So, to this creepy crackhead Halloween slasher, let's not meet. Wow. First, let's back up a minute because I think there's a lot here. Don't blame yourself because evil people do evil things, and a lot of times we won't be able to stop them. I'm sure you are very grateful to be alive, and you should be. It's terrifying. And it's very sad too, that monster was preying on very vulnerable people, either children or elderly. And that poor old lady who answered the door, it seems like he was out for blood on the night that's all about ghouls and ghosts and goblins and monsters. Now, some of the commenters felt the same way. One named Off-White Knight 79 said, "Sorry to hear about the old lady, but if it helps, it might not have mattered if you did call the police. It really doesn't look like there was much reason to call when he was at your house because he left when you told him to, and he hadn't threatened you or tried to break in. Unless you falsified your report a bit, told the cops when you called that you'd seen him with a weapon or that he was actively trying to break in, for example, this would have been a low priority call for them, which pretty much means they get there when they feel like it. They probably still wouldn't have been there in time to save your neighbor." And I tend to agree with Off-White Knight. Sadly, it seems this person did have an agenda. We may never know why he was out for blood that night or if this case was ever solved, but in these instances, sometimes that guilt can feel overwhelming. But You're looking at things after the fact, and in the moment, you can only have that little knowledge, that limited amount of knowledge, and you protected yourself and your brother. And that's the best thing you could have done in that moment. Now, another commenter named Cheryl Noble said, "You couldn't have known what would happen. My mom called the police one Halloween back in the 80s for someone very similar at our door, an adult trick-or-treater who would neither speak nor leave our porch when asked to. It took my father and the very tall husband of my mother's friend to make him leave. The police didn't come until the next morning to take a report. I was too young at the time to now recall why, but I'm guessing it was a busy night." And I fully have to agree with this. What is that going to do going the next morning? And that's another thing. Sometimes police won't even take a call like that seriously on a Halloween night because they could be like, someone's knocking on your door and they look weird and they're dressed in a costume or in black. It's Halloween. Call back if they become a threat. I've been there. I call about things all the time just in case because, true crime creator and consumer. And it's maddening when police brush us off, but it happens a lot. Oh, and there was a few commenters that were pretty much ripping the story apart. And I totally get that. One person whose account is now deleted thought that either the poster was exaggerating or that the story was fake. And they pointed out how dark it was and that the original poster said they saw yellow teeth through a peephole. They wondered how they could see this, especially with a hood on, and another commenter, Incognito Vixen, agreed, saying, "There are just way too many details given from OP's view through a peephole. I don't know how you could see hands stuffed into someone's pocket. I'm lucky to see someone from the shoulders up through mine." Fair enough, I guess, right? But the last comment I want to highlight was one I didn't expect to see, so I wanted to share it. Always tell me your thoughts in the comments as well. Ravia wrote this. "Been looking at comments saying you shouldn't blame yourself? I say by all means, go ahead and do so. When people say you shouldn't, they're saying you need to be saved from recognizing how you made mistake. You and we all should be able to learn from mistakes and errors, not totally deny that in some crazy illusion that we are perfect or must, in admitting a mistake, suffer some horrific consequence of conscience. You shouldn't be attacked for not calling the police and shouldn't have to be protected from the realization that it would have been better to do so. You didn't know better, but clearly you could have saved her life had you called the police. You're doing fine thing in admitting this and in staying well and strong while doing so. Indeed, there is someone at your door knocking. It's a bedraggled, dirty, nasty troll with an ugly smile and sharp yellow teeth rotten from the carrion he's been eating." Bedraggled? I've never heard bedraggled. He is a torturing conscience, but the way to keep him out is not to refuse to open the door to admitting our mistakes. It's letting in the good kind of conscience and alerting people to the dangers of this kind of conscience. I'm calling the police, so to speak, by saying this. And do not doubt that down a street somewhere, a creaking rope connects to the victim of this troll who has no interest in money or other valuables. Wow. Okay, that was very poetic in some ways, but I think without context of knowing, for example, how old the original poster is or her brother, we're putting a lot of judgment and burden on them, a lot. But I do think we should learn from our mistakes. I'm sure the OP did. She said she called the police right away when she heard the news, and she wished she'd called sooner. She was the one who said she blamed herself and that she has to live with that. I'm sure if she could go back, she would call just in case. But when this commenter said it's clear, like clearly you could have saved her, no, we don't know that. But give me your thoughts. And of course, I have more stories for you, so don't go anywhere. This is just the first one. This one is called Halloween Strangers, and it was posted by Mr. Evil Guy. It's also from the Let's Not Meet subreddit, and this time it's an adult taking his kids trick-or-treating. So right away, I was really focused on the story, hoping it wouldn't scare me too badly that I didn't want to go out this year. But here goes. It was my turn to take the kids trick-or-treating. The previous year was my wife's, and we trade back and forth every year. My son and daughter are aged 7 and 9. And usually I stay on the street while my kids go up to the different houses to collect candy. After about half an hour of walking around, we came to one of the more popular hotspots for candy collecting, a main street in the neighborhood. Lots of really cool decorations and animatronics on people's lawns. By the way, I love when people go all out. I really hope to be that person at some point in my life, but back to the story. He wrote, "So I became a bit distracted and stopped watching my kids closely. At one point, they came back from a house accompanied by another girl about the same height as my daughter. She was wearing a weird homemade mask, like a cardboard cutout of something. My daughter asked me if she could trick or treat with us, so I said, sure, and we carried on together as a group. I didn't know who this girl was, but I figured she was a friend from school. As we continued, I started to notice a large man trailing us. He was wearing some sort of angry cat mask. It was kind of creepy, to be honest. I thought that maybe he was the father of the girl, so I tried to start up some small chat with him. I said something like, nice weather, eh? But he didn't respond. He just stood there staring at me while our kids went up the stairs to the next house. I tried again asking, hey, is that your daughter? He nodded, but didn't say anything. I figured he just wasn't in the mood for chatting, so I stopped trying. We carried on for about another 15 minutes until suddenly my kids came up to me and said they wanted to go home. This surprised me, as we hadn't been out too long and their bags were only about a third full. In any case, I agreed, waved goodbye at the man in the cat mask and his daughter, and started our way home. The weird thing is that when I glanced back, the man and his daughter were just standing there staring at us. I checked one more time as we turned the corner, and they were still standing there, not having moved at all. At this point, I decided to ask my kids, so who is that girl? My daughter looked up at me with a confused look on her face and said, she's your friend. I asked her what she meant. Apparently, the girl with the cardboard mask approached them and said she was a friend of mine. She told my daughter she was too shy to ask me if she could join us trick-or-treating and wanted my daughter to ask me instead. I laughed at the story and replied to my daughter, why would you think she was my friend? I don't have any children friends. What my daughter said next chilled my bones. According to her, when the girl with the cardboard mask approached them for the first time, she wasn't wearing the mask, so they were able to see her face. As it turned out, she wasn't a girl at all, but an older woman around my age with wrinkles on her face. What's even more disturbing, the old woman had started to steal treats from my daughter's bag, apparently when I wasn't looking. This is why they asked to go home. The old woman was creeping them out, and they wanted to just get away from her. I brought my kids home and told my wife what happened. We made sure to check through all their candy, but didn't find anything suspicious or off. We didn't call the police or anything since nothing really happened. But thinking back, I kind of regret that decision now. What the heck was an old woman doing, and who the hell was that man following us around? I don't think I'll ever know. I just think it's sick that there are people out there on Halloween hiding behind masks pretending to be children. Yikes. Okay. Maybe there is an age limit. I said there was no age limit. I was wrong. This seems really wrong, doesn't it? I don't know how old this cat woman in disguise was. I mean, saying someone has wrinkles doesn't mean they're old, but I think that's what the original poster was insinuating, that she looked like an older lady, definitely not a kid, and that's what matters. But one commenter said, hey, when I was 15, I thought 30 was old, so it makes sense if a 10-year-old might describe maybe a 25-year-old as old. And I tend to agree. I mean, I used to do the same thing. I thought 40 was like literally decrepit, falling down, you needed a cane. And I'm past my 40s now. I hate to admit it sometimes, but I think the point is that you don't know who's next to you in a Halloween costume on Halloween. I've done at least a couple cases on my true crime channel. I will link them below in case you do want to watch them. But one stands out as very creepy because it was on Halloween and the killer disguised himself with a Halloween costume. So it is scary. One comment from Sunny Macaron said, she went to the effort to conceal her identity, hiding her face and voice from OP. She must have understood. I don't get the motive though. And this was in response to someone saying that maybe the woman had a developmental delay. So yeah, why disguise your voice? But again, What would be the motive other than free candy? Now, I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know if this might upset anybody, but sometimes I just have to think to myself, it might have been a necessity. Now, you're going to be like, wait, trick-or-treating, Halloween candy, hear me out. What if they were grandparents? And maybe they don't have money to give their own grandchildren costumes or candy like this. Maybe they don't live in a neighborhood that even participates in Halloween. And perhaps in their mind, they thought it wouldn't be so bad if they were out there getting candy for someone else. Probably not, right? But you never know. You never know what other people's circumstances are, right? And maybe she wanted to disguise her voice as younger, so no one suspected that she was an old lady collecting free candy. Since that would be like stealing, right? One last comment that I saw that I wanted to share was from Alien Art 4. They said, please contact your local police now before Halloween this year to share your information. It is crucial for them to know that there can be adults dressed up as children moving in and around all the kids trick-or-treating. Think if that woman had grabbed your child by the arm and pretended to be her sister, taking her home, but as an adult abducting children. Police need to tell their officers and parents about this risk. I think this person has a point, but also, as we stated last time about the police, there's only so much they can do. And since it's not exactly a crime that I know of, and they're only suspecting what they were doing out there that night, they're not going to do a full investigation with ring cameras and go looking for this random old lady in disguise. But being vigilant is important. So yes, maybe tell your other people in the neighborhood, other parents in the neighborhood. A lot of people have community networks on Facebook where you can kind of let people know. And I'm sure they did. I'm sure they let all the parents know what was going on. But have you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought about who you're right next to on Halloween? I don't think I have in the moment, but now looking back, I do think about who I've seen trick-or-treating before. And some person told me this once. They were like, oh, I can always tell who's from my neighborhood. I'm like, how? People are wearing costumes. How can you tell they're from your neighborhood or not? And I guess their point was a lot of times, and I don't really know if this is like wrong, there are better neighborhoods for trick-or-treating. I mean, tell me your thoughts about that. I know there are definitely parts of my neighborhood that are well known for giving better candy. And you better believe I'm going to travel from this part of the neighborhood to the other part of the neighborhood to get me some candy. But I do realize I have never been the house before that set up candy. So maybe you would know that these are not your neighbors. I know when my daughter's trick-or-treating, she recognizes everyone, even when they're in costume, because she's been going to school with them for years. Now, for this next story, though, I thought about doing something just a little different. I wanted to share one from the paranormal subreddit, and it's from Darling Darkness. It's called The Fake Haunted House I Work At Is Actually Haunted. Already just reading that, I kind of get freaked out because I am going to Halloween Horror Nights again this year. Had to skip last year because I was having a baby and she's only a couple of months old at the time, so I couldn't go. But please tell me that this is not going to give me nightmares. But here goes. For 12 years, I've worked as an actor for a local haunted house attraction. It's a lot of fun as I get to play a variety of horror characters and act out different scenes. While the tours we put on are clearly fake, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that isn't. I should start off by explaining that the building we do this out of is extremely old and was once an elementary school. We gutted the section of the building that was classrooms and constructed it to what we needed. This is when we actually started having weird experiences. There's plenty of activity that can be shrugged off, such as feeling watched and hearing footsteps running in areas there is no one. Then there are things not so easy to disregard, such as one evening, a member was working on hooking up our sound system by himself. He had not even hooked the large speakers up yet when he stated a loud, deep growl came booming through them. This terrified him so much, he ran out of the building and would not go back in, even to lock up, until another member came down to go in with him. He never worked alone in that building again. Other activity seems playful and childlike, such as hearing small giggles and whispering in the halls and in rooms that are empty. Things being moved from where we last placed them. One year, I was in a rocking chair that I would jump out of as a group came through. The thing about the rocking chair is it was more like a glider and it was broken. I would have to use a lot of force to get the chair to rock backward at all. It was right before showtime. I was sitting in this broken chair, getting mentally pumped for the night ahead. I was completely alone when I felt someone grab onto the back of the chair and harshly pull it backwards. I felt myself flying backwards with the chair, and I honestly thought I would flip out of it. Thankfully, this did not happen, and as soon as I stabled myself, I jerked to see who had done this. The room I was in was large, and no one could get out of this room without me seeing them running away in the split second it took me to look behind me. There was absolutely no one there, and I was suddenly covered in goosebumps. No one was even in the area around my room at the time. Later that same night, the lights were off. My strobe was on, and the group had just left my room when I noticed a small figure in the far right corner of the room. It looked like a small child crouching down looking my way, and I was immediately worried that a child had been left behind from the previous group. As I headed towards the figure to ask if they were okay, the strobe flashed, and the figure was completely gone. Oh my God, now I'm getting goosebumps. It's not over though. They wrote, this same year, but different night, I was again sitting in my chair waiting for the next group when someone or something growled right in my ear. It was so loud that it caused my ear to ring, and when I turned to see what it was, there was nothing but an empty room. I changed rooms the next year and did not experience as much creepy phenomenon. There's not much history I've been able to find about this building, but I'm so curious as to what could be causing all the weirdness. This is only a tiny bit of what has been experienced over the years working there, and I don't feel like it will stop anytime soon. Wow, wow, wow. That's all I can say. I love haunted houses. I really do, but this is next level. This reminds me, I don't know if you're going to remember this, but back in the day, I was obsessed with this really creepy story that honestly, I really don't know whether it's true or not. I don't know if you've heard of it, like I said, but if you've ever seen Three Men and a Baby, first of all, cute, heartwarming movie, but I get the chills just thinking back on this one thing. Oh my God. Okay, so in the movie, there's this normal scene where the grandmother is just meeting the baby for the first time, completely normal, picks up the baby, it kind of coos, kind of adding a bit of eeriness for what happens next. If you blinked, you would miss it. If you're watching the screen, I'm going to show it to you. Here goes. There. Do you see that? It looks like a little boy, a little ghost boy, or maybe just a boy that was playing on set where he wasn't supposed to. But this was back in the day when we had VHS, okay? So we had to pause it, and when we did, we would get this blurry effect. So to me and so many others, this looked like a ghost. And then there was the urban legend, and this was before we could just Google it on the internet, that this movie was apparently shot in a house where a young boy had died. He had fallen out of that same window, and that was supposed to be his ghost in the movie. And I couldn't sleep. I would always want to go look at it again because I had the tape and I would put it in, but I was like too afraid to pause it and look. And I remember people in my friend group pointing out that he didn't have feet. So you could kind of see him hovering back there. And they would dissect it over and over again, this one still frame for years and years. And there are people who swear that it's true and that any debunking is just an excuse because they didn't want the movie to get tarnished with this haunted aspect of it. But other people say, no, that's a cutout of Ted Danson. I don't know. What does it look like to you? To me, I'm not so sure because he's tall. He's not small. Let me know if you remember this happening and if you have some insight. Sorry that I went on a little tangent there, but back to the haunted house story. So, do you think it was really haunted? Do you believe in spirits? Because I used to think that was completely fake, but after doing a lot of true crime stories, I've definitely experienced the unexplained, I would say, in my other set. One commenter, PeteNick1984, said, there's a lot of fear there. Totally safe since it's just pretend with it being a haunted house, but that doesn't mean that the fear people express is any less. I'd wager there are non-human entities that enjoy this energy. They don't need to be negative beings, just there enjoying it and having fun messing around, just like everyone else. And that is kind of an interesting thought. Maybe energies are attracted to like energies. Another commenter, Juanit O, said, y'all were asking for it. Old spaces don't like to be bothered. Similar to this, where I live now, a town over, there is a known historically haunted hotel. They did the same thing 2 seasons, and the staff wouldn't do it again because of the extra activity they stirred up or fed. Yeah, I kind of liken it to Pandora's box, where I keep a lid on it. Don't stir things up. But someone pointed out and made them wonder, what would happen if there was an old haunted place and then it's demolished, or they build on top of it while the ghosts are still there? Well, that reminds me of another really scary movie that I used to watch as a kid, which is Poltergeist. I cannot watch that. It frightens me so much. Even today, your house being built on a graveyard. Cemeteries really frighten me. I know that they're partially beautiful. It's where we remember the dead. And that part about it is fine. But then there's just this eerie part about the fact that we know dead people are there. And as much as I don't want to believe in ghosts or spirits, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's a fundamental principle in physics. It just transfers or transforms. It embodies something else. So I don't know. We're made of energy, matter. It's not just stuff. It's, mass comes from particles and energies moving very rapidly. But I'm not here to conduct a science class. It just kind of makes you think about it. And that's why I tell these stories, so we can think about them and talk about them and retell them to others. Keep the conversation going. Speaking of which, I have one last story for you. And don't dare me to go here after you hear this, because it is in California. And this is also from the paranormal subreddit. And if you didn't think the last story held that much weight, well, wait until you hear this one. It's called The Haunted House That Still Whispers. And the poster is Muntazir Ram. There's a big old house in San Diego that looks calm from the outside, but inside, it's got stories that can make your skin crawl. This is Whaley House, built way back in 1857 by a man named Thomas Whaley. He wanted to make a lovely family home, but here's the creepy part. He built it right where a man named Yankee Jim was hanged for stealing a boat. Locals said the place was cursed from the start. Not long after the Whaleys moved in, they started hearing heavy footsteps, but no one was there. They believed it was Yankee Jim's ghost, still pacing the halls. Sadly, the Whaleys faced a lot of heartbreak in that house. One of their young daughters died from an illness, and people say her little giggles can still be heard in the home. Some even say they've seen her. The house was later used as a courtroom, a store, and even a small theater. But the spooky stuff never stopped. People who visit talk about cold spots, strange smells like perfume, and shadows that move when no one's around. Today, the Whaley House is open to the public. It's a museum now, but many say it still feels like the past hasn't left. The walls seem to remember everything, and if you stand quiet enough, they just might whisper to you, too. Yikes, that is so well written. Just one look at the comments, and I kept thinking, should I visit? Do I want to visit? Is this a good idea to visit? One commenter, Spot Miserable 3379, which seems like a fitting name for the story, said, my sister and her husband lived in Poway. My husband and I visited them regularly from the San Francisco Bay Area. We went to the Whaley House at least 15 times, and it's the real deal. Even though I am a bit of a skeptic, my first visit, I became nauseated. I felt a fear I can't begin to explain, and I don't frighten easily. That happened 3 more times. Cold spots, perfume, and moving shadows are there, but some felt a very evil presence at times. An intriguing place to visit. By the way, Robert the Doll, Hemingway House, Key West, Florida, is very much like Whaley House. And I want to say, oh, by the way, as well, my husband, John, just put out an entire video about Robert the Doll. Definitely didn't know this was going to happen in both of our videos, that we were going to mention Robert. But wow, that's another creepy story. Robert, I'm asking permission to talk about you in this moment in my video. and show a picture of you in my video. If you know, you know. Go watch the video. But wow, I don't think I would want to feel physically ill. And OP commented back to that comment. They said it gave them chills just reading it. They pointed out that the fact that it happened more than once and you're not someone who gets scared easily makes it even more convincing. That kind of deep, unexplainable fear says a lot. It's wild how some places just feel heavy, like they're holding on to something. And they've heard about Robert the Doll too, creepy stuff. I didn't know the Hemingway house had a similar vibe to Whaley. They said, now I'm tempted to plan a haunted tour trip across the country. And I was thinking, yeah, I kind of want to too. However, I'm from Florida and I love Key West. So I wouldn't necessarily want to associate that with fear, but I thought of a story that I'm going to save till next time because I'm going to do another Halloween episode. And in that one, I will add my personal story at the end because I do have a haunted hotel story. And I was thinking maybe I could reach out to my friend Jenna because she was with me at the time and maybe she can tell her part of the story, or at least, through DM. So I'll reach out. I do think that homes can hold energy of some kind. Let me know if you personally had any experiences like this. I've definitely had more than one, but I would like to hear from all of you. And please don't forget, if you want to share one of your stories and you want me to tell one of your stories, I actually created a subreddit called Candidly Kimbyr, and I'll leave it in the description box for you. You can submit your own story. And you know what? It's not even too late to submit a Halloween related story, possibly to make it into my next episode. But that is all I do have for you today. And I want you to be safe. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.